What's going on, boys and girls, and Mushoku Tensei Sundays? Yes, we have just completed the most recent episode of Mushoku Tensei, episode 16, Family Squabbles, and oh my god, Paul, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that out of every single available option of different plethora of characters that Rudy could have came across, it would be his own dad. It would be Paul. Guys, this episode was just amazing. It was emotional. It was taxing on you as a viewer. This episode was so freaking good. This episode was just so good. And like, I was just yearning for more after this episode. I know that kind of sounds silly, but so often in Jobless Reincarnation, I'm like, yo, give me a little bit more. Give me a little bit more. I feel like the episodes are just so short. And that's how you know that you're watching like a masterpiece of an anime. It's just, you're just like, I need more. I'm so excited as we jump into next week's episode and we continue on what's been going. But wow, the emotions that happened within this episode with Rudy finally meeting Paul again for the first time, they were just extraordinary. They were just out there. They're just extraordinary. These different emotions that were there. He had excitement to finally meet his dad. He had this he had this level of just wanting to tell him everything that he's been going through. Like, this is his dad. He wanted to let him know like his adventures and his excitement and the different things that he's been going through and how he survived this whole entire time and the struggles that he had and the ability to make it to where he's now alive. And this whole time, you know, he's having this conversation with Paul and Paul is getting, you know, progressively angry and more angry and pissed off. And the whole time as Rudy is telling his dad about these adventures that he was on, he's wondering, like, why is this the reaction that he's getting? And eventually, Paul snaps. You know, Paul snaps at Rudy, and he's like, it sounds like you've been having fun, and it sounds like you've been having fun with your little girlfriend, and it sounds like you've just been an adventurer, and you haven't had a care in the world, and, you know, if there's anybody else out there, I thought you would be one of the ones that would be actively looking for, you know, for the people of our village, and for the people that matter most to you. But it sounds like all you cared about was guarding your little girlfriend, and this and that, and Paul's emotion vomiting on Rudy, and Rudy's getting pissed because he's like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. Like, what are you trying to say? And Paul's continually referencing, you know, haven't you seen my post? You're an adventurer now? How have you not seen the message boards that I have been putting out? How have you not seen it? And the anger is overflowing, so much so that Paul decks Rudy in the face, you know, just out of pure just anger, you know what I mean? After he told everyone, like, you stay out of this. This is a family issue right now. He decks him in the face, and Rudy gets even more pissed at that. He's like, of course I haven't seen it. He's like, I've been trying to survive. Like, you don't understand my side of it. And Rudy ends up using his future eye. I was like, yeah, my boy Rudy. He uses his future eye, and he bobs and weaves them. And he ends up using his magic on Paul. He winds him up to the sky. It was like, oh my god, is that magic? He winds him up to the sky. He just wails. He just wails on his dad. He just wails. He wails on him. And honestly, the whole time I was like, yes, get him, Rudy. Get him, Rudy. Because Paul was being a big asshole. Like, Paul is not a really compassionate person. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't quite get it. You know, and he also is only thinking. They're both thinking selfishly in a way, right? But Paul's really only thinking from the mindset of the struggles that he's been through and what happened to him and trying to find his family. You know, he's thinking of all these emotions that have been pent up, you know, and forever, you know, and he's laying them out on his kid because he thought his kid was doing something. So, you know, he's in the right and Rudy's in the right. But, you know, I was like, yeah, go Rudy, get him, you know, show Paul what's up. And he overcomes his dad. He's like, don't you dare, Pop. Don't you dare. You have no idea what I've been through, blah, blah. And eventually who comes through the door is Norn, which is his younger sister, right? And his younger sister comes, pushes him off, and he's like, yo, don't you recognize me? Like, I'm your older brother. She's like, don't be mean, don't bully Dad. He's like, what do you mean bully? And everybody in the bar or in that guild area is just looking at him, and he has these pent up memories and feelings of when he was the one being outcasted, you know, when he was in his other world as Fat Man, you know what I mean? And he has all those emotions come back, and he just can't take it, and he walks out, and he goes to go sulk, and as he's sulking, Eris consoles him. And it was that I thought that was a really cute moment how Eris consoled him, because she didn't know how to do it. And she told him, like, Rudy, I don't know how to do this, but she tried anyways, and that's what mattered to Rudy. That's what mattered to Eris. That's what mattered in that moment. And Rudy noticed it too. And this was just such an emotional episode. Like, it was just such an emotional episode. It was just so good. And I want to talk a little bit about, like, both sides of the coin here. Rudy hasn't been writing his family. Rudy hasn't been writing his family. He was going to write them for the first time during this episode, but he didn't. Because he had noticed a kidnapping, and the number 1 and number 2 rules of Dead End is never let children, always save children. So he wanted, he went to go after this kid, and the way that the kidnappings were happening, that's how he came across his dad. He found a Holy Grail, and he put the Holy Grail on his face, and, he tried to save him. He overcame every adventure that his dad has employed. And he noticed that, hey, the guy that they were kidnapping looked familiar. At some point his dad let him know that, hey, your family has been yeeted away through this Mana disaster. The first thing, this pisses off Paul even more. The first thing that Rudy asked was, what about Sophie? And he's like, yo, you don't even care about your mother? You're not going to ask about your mother? You're going to ask about Sophie first? So that pisses off his dad even more. And the whole thing was emotional. But I want to talk a little bit about, like, how neither of them were essentially wrong. They were both in the wrong here. Neither of them are wrong. From Rudy's perspective is what I want to talk about. From Rudy's perspective, is he was beamed to a unknown land and an unknown continent, and he was tasked with surviving. Now, in his ignorance, he didn't think about that, hey, have other people been affected? But in his defense, who's he going to ask? He was beamed to the demon continent. He's trying to find his way back. It would have been good for him to write. And Paul calls him out. He's like, you never wrote once. During the years that he was there with Eris, and then this last year and a half or so, he hasn't written. So Paul called him out, and rightfully so. But again, in Rudy's defense, who is he going to ask? Like, hey, by the way, this other thing happened. He's focused on finding his way back, finding a way to survive, finding a way to skill up. He only has so much skill. He did paint his experience light, because he's trying to be excited about his adventures. He's never had these adventures before, so he's trying to be excited telling his father. But the reality is he's had some harsh times. You know what I mean? He's had to sleep outside. He's had some harsh times. He's had to find his way through adventures. He had to find a way through survive. He has to, Paul has to realize that he's also, he's 11 or 12 now, but he's also a child. He's a kid trying to survive. He's not like he's this grown man, trying to survive through this issue. He's a kid. So, and again, in Rudy's defense, like, he may have been ignorant to what have happened, but, like, who is he going to ask? He's very much focused on survival, getting Eris back. Even Eris didn't even think, like, oh, I wonder if, my father was, beamed somewhere else, grandfather, anything, mom, any of them, we don't know. But, they didn't really think about that. And as they happen at Adventurers Guild, maybe it is partially Rudy's fault, but he has been looking at quest boards and stuff like that. I don't know if he's been able to look at postings, but there's a lot of just, cross wires that they just didn't cross. You know what I mean? And it wasn't really Rudy's fault. Now, devil's advocate to that is Rudy should have thought, I wonder if this has happened to anybody else. He should have tried asking around, has anybody else heard about the Mana disaster? And maybe someone could be like, yeah, my mother, father, mother, niece, grandfather, brother, sister, cousin, they got yeeted away. He could have asked, So, he didn't think that far ahead. He told Paul that this episode too. I didn't think. And so he wasn't at fault, but he was at fault. On Paul's side, his fault was Rudy said, I didn't think about it. In that moment, you have to be a father. He's right now he's being an angry adventurer who just lost his wife and his kids. And, obviously that's that's eating him up. He's a drunk. He looks terrible. He looks like he's been through hell and back. He looks not great. You know what I mean? Rudy called him out for keeping femininely company, which we don't even know if that's the truth. Paul looks like a mess. He looks like an absolute mess. He looks like he's been through hell and back. And, in those moments where Paul's angry with Rudy, he's in the right. Why didn't Rudy do this? Why didn't Rudy look at this? Why didn't Rudy ever think about this? Rudy is strong. He could have been looking for them. He could have, through the different areas that he's traveled, you could have been looking. You could, instead of messing around with some little demon girl, you could have been looking. In a way, he's in the right. In a way, he's in the wrong. This is your kid. He's a kid. He's still a kid. He's 11. He's 12 years old. He's a child. He got beamed through an unknown continent. He's been scraping and clawing. He's been trying to survive to get to where he is right now. There's a lot of chances to where he may not even have been here to even have this conversation with you today. I get you're angry. You need to be a dad. You also need to be compassionate. You're yelling at him for things that he doesn't know what the hell you're talking about. Explain it to him in a way. That's where Paul's character is interesting, because he lacks compassion in a way, especially when it comes to Rudy. He in a sense, he kind of talks to Rudy like he's on even playing field. And I get from certain levels, yeah, Rudy is. In certain levels, though, he is still the kid. And even though he's an old man in a kid's body, he's still ignorant to a lot of the things because he just never really grew up before. So, that's where Paul's wrong in a lot of senses, too, is, he lacks that compassion and stuff. But, I don't want to dawdle on forever. I just want to say, wow, this episode really got me every emotion you could have. I laughed. I rooted for Rudy. I was sad. I was baffled. I was excited. Every emotion was during this episode. And I think this episode was absolutely fire and fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for being here with for the review. I hope you guys agree with me. If you don't, let's talk in the comments down below. If you guys want, go check out our full reaction of this video. It's going to be right up over here. Appreciate you guys being here for another week. But man, Paul, crazy. All right, my friends, I'll see you guys next week for Mushoku Tensei Sundays for episode 17 next week. Peace out, everybody.